Freemasonry, the lodge, the craft, these are terms of what probably which you are familiar with. But precisely what are they and what do they mean? Well, I can't answer that question for you. So fortunately, we've been able to find somebody who can. This morning, I'm joined by the District Grand Master of the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada, Mr. Louis Jean Baptiste. He's with us via Zoom. Good morning, Mr. Baptiste.
Good morning, and how are you?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you doing?
I am doing fine, and morning also to your viewers.
Well, thank you very much for joining me, sir. I'll start by asking, simply, what is Freemasonry?
Freemasonry really, we like to say, is a system of morality. It is veiled in allegory and symbols. That is how we get our messages over. And inside of that, our basic tenets hinge on brotherly love, relief, and truth.
From a historical context, where was Freemasonry established? Where was the lodge established, and how did it come to Trinidad and Tobago?
Freemasonry goes back, or let's say Masonry. Let's start Masonry. It goes back to the Middle Ages. It goes back to the original stone operative masons who had guilds and who would have gone from place to place. Out of that, we got speculative masonry, as I said, indicating using symbols and allegories, a lot of it coming out of the building of King Solomon's temple. We have a lot of references to the Bible and to that era in particular. And this jurisdiction, in my jurisdiction, we have been chartered by the Grand Lodge of Scotland, headquarters in Edinburgh, and we came together as a Grand Lodge in roughly around 1730s.
Now, you just said in your jurisdiction, and then you referenced Scotland. Is it that Freemasonry and the lodge, there are many jurisdictions? In fact, what are the jurisdictions, if that be the case, that exist in Trinidad and Tobago?
All right. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada, Scottish Constitution, of which I am the District Grand Master. We have United Grand Lodge of England, and then there is the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts.
The Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. That sounds. Could you just kindly elaborate on that particular one? Because I have heard of the Grand Lodge of the United Kingdom and of Scotland, but the Prince Hall Lodge, that is not a familiar term to me. Can you kindly elaborate on that particular jurisdiction?
Well, it is one of the, if not the oldest, black lodges or black constitutions that was established many years ago. They are headquartered, this particular one is headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts, but throughout the United States, there are other Prince Hall Grand Lodges. In our jurisdiction, we have relationships, and we recognize the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts.
Is there harmony amongst the three jurisdictions of which you mentioned? Is it that these three lodges, there is some sort of cohesion amongst them?
Well, let me first, minor correction, 3 constitutions.
Thank you.
Because under the constitutions, you have several lodges. And yes, to answer your question directly, yes, there's harmony. we recognize each other, we can attend each other's meetings and partake in each other's activities. Our recruiting may be different, slightly different, but we believe in the same tenets of Freemasonry, that Freemasonry is based on.
Now,
Go ahead, please.
yeah, so as Freemasonry made its way to Trinidad and Tobago, and you mentioned District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada, is it that, has there been some form of evolution where the beliefs and practices that exist here in the lodge in TNT are different to the ones in Scotland, or has tradition remained the same?
No, most of the lodges here in Scottish Freemasonry, we perform the same ritual and the same workings that they do in Scotland. We have one lodge, very old lodge, the first lodge, United Brothers 251. They had their origins in St. Lucia, and because of civil disturbance way back when, they came to Trinidad in 1795, and they then were consecrated under U.S. jurisdiction before they were chartered by the Grand Lodge of Scotland in 1813. Mm-hmm. So Lodge United Brothers is our oldest lodge, and but all the lodges practice, but they have a very special initiation. But all the other lodges, we practice basically the same ritual.
I'm actually going to get into, you're using this term rituals quite often. I'm going to get into that in a moment. But just to get the basic foundation of this conversation, with respect to the members of the lodge, could you say, or could you give an estimate as per the average number of members that the District Grand Lodge you said under the Scottish Constitution, how many members do they have?
All right, to start with, under the Scottish Constitution, we have, of the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada, we have one lodge in Grenada, we have one in Tobago, and we have 11 lodges situated in Trinidad. We have one in San Fernando, we have one in Arima, and the others are in Port of Spain. Membership in each of them would vary. The stronger of the lodges may have maybe 40, 45 active members. The not so strong, you may be looking at about 20 active. And when I say active, the lodges were to some extent adversely affected by COVID. So in the post-COVID period, we have had some of our membership, especially the age, mm-hmm. who are concerned about coming back to open lodge, either because not just straight age-wise, but because of illnesses that they may be carrying, who is a diabetic, or they feel that coming and socializing in a close environment may be detrimental to their health.
Mm-hmm. A woman allowed to be a part of the lodge? Does Freemasonry, as it stands, include women?
As it stands today, under the Grand Lodge of Scotland, under the three jurisdictions that we have in Trinidad, women are not allowed.
Is there a desire or need to try and change that?
Well, it's something that is being looked at, but in the United States, and we do have the Order of the Eastern Star, which was recently brought back to Trinidad and Tobago. They were here before, went dormant. So far, they may attend our social gatherings. We may interact with them, but they may not, and we cannot in turn attend their formal meetings.
Mm-hmm. So, as we've gotten, more or less the foundation of this conversation out of the way, I'll ask you, what are the basic principles of Freemasonry?
Well, as I mentioned before, it is founded on brotherly love, relief, and truth. We feel that we can assist in taking a young man, a man of any age, mature age, and assist him, guide him in becoming a better person. And he has the support of the various membership, not just limited to his own personal lodge. The lodge that he joins, initially we call it his mother lodge, but we do encourage our membership to visit the other 12, as a matter of fact, not just the 13 lodges within the Scottish Constitution, but we encourage them to fellowship with members in the other constitutions. And thereby they see, they grow, they socialize, and they would find examples of men who they can emulate or who can guide them in becoming a better person.
Why is Freemasonry and the lodge, why is it shrouded in so much secrecy?
Well, that goes back in history to the Middle Ages and our operative masons who they were stone masons, and I said they belonged to guilds, and so they had their own secret ways of identifying themselves as qualified masons as they went from village to village. So that formed the foundation. But Freemasonry, while we may have certain secrets, it is not a secret society. There's a lot of misinformation outside there in terms of what Freemasonry is, what it does. A lot of it can be negative, but that is furthest from the truth.
You're saying it's furthest?
For instance, to become a Freemason, one must be a believer in God. Whether you want to call that God Jah, Allah, Jehovah, one must be a believer in a supreme being. You cannot be a believer in a supreme being and then engage in negative activity.
I'm going to get back to that point. That's a very interesting point that you raised. But you just mentioned there's so many rumors. And earlier, you using the term rituals quite a bit. We are aware of some of the rumors. The Lodge and Freemasons are devil worshippers, for example. Those are one of the rumors, or misconceptions, I see. Because of the secrecy, as you said, this goes back centuries, has that contributed to the rumor mill? And is there, because of that secrecy, could you say for certain that this is not true? Even though you believe in God, we're not devil worshippers in any way.
Unequivocally, as I said, you come in, we have our ceremonies. If the lodge is Christian, its membership is predominantly Christian, there would be the Bible would be open. If the lodge consists of I made mention of Lodge United Brothers. In that particular lodge, you will have the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Quran. And so that there's nothing ungodly. We don't say God. We prefer to use the term of the great architect of the universe to cover all religions. But one, we are not a religious body, but we do reinforce religious beliefs.
No.
Nothing towards devil worship, far from the truth.
So we understand now the relationship between religion and Freemasonry. Now, you've also mentioned that one must believe in a supreme being. You refer to it as a great architect of the universe.
Correct.
That could be, anyone in anyone's mind. That can mean anyone, a supreme being, God. So is it that you said that you're not a religious institution, but does one have to be religious, or is it more so spiritually in line? Because there is a difference.
One must attest to a particular religious belief. As I previously called the mainstream, so that in Freemasonry, Muslim, Hindu, Christian, we all come up one banner, the banner of the great architect. And we don't, maybe I should say, we, so far, to the best of my knowledge, it's the more established religious organizations, if I can use that term. But we would not get involved, as I say, or accept an individual who cannot attest a belief in one of the mainstream religions.
Mm-hmm. You're not a religious organization, and I understand that, and I understand from your explanation, but for the clarification of viewers watching, is the lodge a substitute for church or any form of church?
Definitely not. Our members are still encouraged to go to their places of worship. However, as I have been saying, we would, on the teachings of Masonry, would reinforce those religious beliefs and some of those religious activities. Charity, for instance. We get involved in a fair amount of charity. We would encourage any Freemason, whatever tenets that his particular religion teaches, we would support and encourage them along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Now, does Freemasonry, and by extension the lodge, does it discriminate in the sense of it's me wanting to become a member of the lodge for whatever reason that may be, and it's something we could probably get into in a bit, but does it discriminate of my social position, my financial possessions, of my mental abilities, or my physical being?
We are proud to say throughout the history of Freemasonry, we have had paupers to royalty. In order to join Freemasonry, one must first have two individuals, one to propose your membership, one to second your membership. That application form goes to the particular lodge. There's an interview process. There's a recommendation from a committee out of the interview that goes to the lodge. The lodge then takes a vote on it. Any two negative votes, then the individual will not be accepted and may reapply within another year. But it has nothing to do with class. It has nothing to do with your standing in society. It has to do with you, the individual, and what you are bringing to the table.
Mm-hmm. Now, is Freemasonry for everyone?
Um, Probably not from the point of view of commitment. When you join a particular lodge, you are expected to attend that particular lodge, which has a meeting once a month. And in order for you to progress internally and to be better fulfilled, you're encouraged to visit other lodges. So there's a commitment. There's a commitment of going, visiting, development. There's a commitment of supporting some of our charitable works, not necessarily financial. It may be even of your time. Right now, the lodge, the district has under its consideration a mentorship program. We used to have some years ago a mentorship program in South Port of Spain where we would have volunteers from the lodge mentor young men. In most cases, the homes of the mentors, there was an absence of the mentees, of a male father figure. Currently, we are holding discussions with 6 schools in the Mova area to see if our membership could identify young men and provide some form of leadership and guidance to them. So membership in Masonry can be wide. It can be very much time consuming.
You've answered my question as to whether or not Freemasonry is for everyone. But now that there is an understanding, what makes a good Freemason?
What makes a good Freemason? A good Freemason is one who has an open mind to start with, one who is willing to learn. One cannot have a fixed opinion of either the yourself or your surroundings, your life. One must be open. One must be open to discussion. One must be open that if a brother comes to you and he points out, he could do 2 things. He can say, congratulations on this. You have done a good job. On the other hand, when we join Masonry, for instance, when you asked about if it is for everybody, we join Masonry and we consider ourselves on the level, at the same level, rich, poor, indifferent, so that if a brother comes to you and he says, listen, I have noticed this has been taking place, or I have noticed that you have responded in a particular way, one must be open to that. One must be open, I wouldn't say criticism, but one must be open to advice.
Mm-hmm. Now, what should one ask themselves before considering joining the lodge or wanting to become a member? What are some of the things that you should ask yourself before applying?
Well, we have had, let me answer this way. We have had individuals come to us who there may be a void in their life. We are not a service club like the Lions and Kiwanis, and some people are looking for a little bit more than that. In our case, in particular, the type of brotherhood and fellowship that exists, we feel that we can offer men are a way to view the world differently in a more positive way. It's with all that is taking place in society, it is becoming harder these days, as you see what is taking place with our youth. And again, that is why we have asked for volunteers from our membership to go in. We have engaged society. We have some professionals, clinical psychologists who are assisting us in trying to identify good mentors, because they will have to commit to a 3-year, but they will also help us identify who are the young people that we can reach. But for some, it might be too late. For some, we have to acknowledge that. So, initially we may be looking at the 9-year-old to the 13, 14-year-old. Beyond that, it would be increasingly, you look at the statistics outside there and the crime rate, beyond that, it becomes increasingly difficult to provide that type of leadership. They would have been getting leadership from a different quarter in a not so positive way.
You've mentioned earlier about this brotherly love and about helping young men better themselves or see the world from a more positive view. Now, becoming a member or becoming a Freemason, how does that help to answer the question, who am I?
Let me first correct myself. Young men, yes, but we take in men at all ages. All right? We don't discriminate in terms of age. We feel that based on our teachings, you initially might have been asking yourself, who am I? What more is there to do? So we hope to provide that type of guidance. As I said, the leadership, the discussions that take place, the lessons, most of our lessons come out, or you heard me speak of our ritual, and I said it is based on the building of King Solomon's temple. For instance, when I am given work to learn to perform at one of our ceremonies, one of the first things that I would do is go to the Bible and get the reference in terms of where the work is coming from, and to see the hidden meaning, so that whenever I am presenting that piece of work, I am presenting it from a position of knowledge and understanding, and not just regurgitating. They say learn this, so you learn it and you come and reproduce it. But I am able to speak to it and hopefully draw or point out life lessons from it.
Mr. Louis Jean Baptiste, District Grand Master of the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada. Sir, thank you very much for your time this morning and for clarifying certain things. I know we could not have gotten too much into the rituals and the rites and the ceremonies too much, but for the clarification that you did give and for all the information and knowledge that you did share with us this morning, thank you very much, sir.
You're very welcome, and I appreciate the being able to appear here and hopefully to clarify and to demystify a lot of the misconceptions that there is about Freemasonry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Do have a good day.
You too, and to your viewers.